Let's try a little thought experiment. Imagine you're looking up at the night sky, but you're seeing it through three totally different pairs of eyes across hundreds of years of history.
So first up is Isaac Newton. He looks at that sky, and for him, it's undeniable proof of God's handiwork. It's this magnificent, perfect clock ticking away, all set in motion by a master architect. Then you have Albert Einstein gazing at that very same sky, and he sees something else entirely. Not some big cosmic being, but the law itself, a beautiful, serene, eternal logic that's woven right into the fabric of reality. And that brings us to today. We look up at that same sky and we ask a question that kind of builds on both of them. What if the universe itself, after all these billions of years, is finally waking up? You see, this is the story of how our own thinking, through science, through philosophy, might be tracing something incredible. Not just the laws of the cosmos, but maybe even the mind of the cosmos. If this journey sounds as amazing to you as it does to me, then hey, do us a favor, like, share, and definitely subscribe to Project Human. We've got so many more stories like this one to explore together. All right, let's really get into it. Our first stop is with a man who saw the entire universe as this grand, majestic cathedral. You know, it's funny, we think of Newton as this scientist, but really, he was kind of like a theologian in disguise. For him, physics and faith weren't two separate things, not at all. His equations, they were basically acts of worship. And discovering a law like gravity, well, that was like getting a peek at God's divine plan. His science was, in a very real way, his prayer. And this really sums it up perfectly. For Newton, the universe was like a sacred book. Every little thing, from an apple falling from a tree to the massive planets orbiting the sun, was just another verse written by God waiting for us to read it. Okay, now let's jump forward a couple of centuries to our next stop. We're going to meet a mind that completely turned all of this on its head, Albert Einstein.
So Einstein just wasn't buying the idea of a personal God who steps in and messes with our lives. Nope. Instead, he famously said he believed in Spinoza's God. He saw divinity not in a person, but in the absolutely stunning, lawful harmony that runs the whole show.
And this right here shows the shift so clearly. It's fascinating. For Newton, God was the divine architect who built the cathedral of the universe, from the outside. But for Einstein, God was the cathedral. The divinity wasn't the guy who wrote the code. The divinity was the code. But here's a wild thought. What if these two incredible ideas aren't actually fighting each other? What if they're just two steps in a much, much bigger story? The story of the universe becoming aware of itself. And this is where the philosopher Hegel comes in with this amazing concept he called spirit. He basically said, hey, what if history isn't just one random thing after another? What if it's the universe itself working through us, through our art, our ideas, our science, slowly, generation by generation, waking up?
When you look at it this way, you can see this incredible progression. Step 1, we saw God as this being above and separate from nature. Then, in step 2, we started to see God as nature's deep, underlying order. And just maybe, we're now in step 3, where we're starting to see the divine emerge through consciousness itself.
And listen, this idea isn't just some old philosophy anymore. It's actually finding a footing in a modern scientific theory called panpsychism. And what it suggests is just mind-blowing. That consciousness isn't some weird fluke that just happened to pop up in brains. It's actually a fundamental property of the universe, just like mass or gravity.
So here's the absolute key takeaway. As things in the universe get more complex, going from simple particles to plants, all the way up to our own neurons, awareness gets turned up. This theory says we aren't just little specks looking at an external reality. No way. We are reality, right in the middle of the process of becoming conscious. So, where does this all lead? How does it all come together? Well, let's get to the final synthesis, which might just be one of the most profound ideas you'll ever encounter. Think about the journey we've just been on. We started by seeing a divine purpose behind everything. Then we moved to seeing a divine order within everything. And now we're talking about a divine awareness that is everything. And you know what's incredible? The 13th century mystic Rumi nailed this idea centuries ago. This isn't just some pretty poetry. It's an unbelievably powerful statement that lines up perfectly with where this whole scientific and spiritual journey has taken us.
Right there, in that one single line, is the entire idea. The notion that the whole cosmos is somehow reflected inside each of our conscious minds, and at the same time, we are a fundamental part of that very cosmos. And so, we're left with this one last echoing question. When we stand outside and look up at the stars, are we just looking out, or is it possible that the universe, through our eyes, is finally looking back at itself?